Yeah, and there's the official voice saying so. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll walk through our introductions and go from there. Okay, let's see here. Get my view to where I want it to be. I'll go ahead and just go full screen here. Okay. Welcome everyone to Boise ITSM Talks meeting for the month of May. Appreciate everyone being here. Is everyone seeing my screen all right? I'm having a little bit of a blocking
Yes, sir.
for some reason.
Yes, sir. I see it.
Okay, I'm not sure why that's doing that, but I'll see if I can fix that here in a second. First of all, as always, thank you for taking time out of your day to attend our virtual meeting for the month of May. As you all know, this is the Boise ITSM group. This group was started in November 2017, but since COVID, we took a break and a pause in the first half of 2020. And then since that time, we've gone into doing virtual meetings. And we've had a lot of success, not only with having folks from the local area still continuing to attend these meetings, which I greatly appreciate, but also opening up the audience to pretty much anyone that's available to attend. And we want to continue to spread the word and have those opportunities to continue to grow the meeting. I appreciate all of our first timers, as well as all of the attendees outside of the area. And of course, thank you to my counterpart, Keith Sutherland, for joining me today. We're going to be delivering our presentation on value stream mapping. I always like to start off this meeting start with why. I also start my presentations off that way, and you'll see that coming up here in just a minute. We're here to deliver actionable information and have presentations that you can get some strong takeaways from and have the opportunity to take those back into your organization. We try and leave enough time at the end of the meeting for some Q&A, and we should have plenty of time to do that today as well. And we're really here to continue to help everyone become better IT leaders and fill the ITSM voids that we see in organizations and continue to look for those opportunities to continue on our improvement journey. Today's presentation is called Putting the Value in Value Stream Mapping and will be co-presented by myself. I'm Jeff Jensen from ITarian IT Leaders, and joining me is Keith Sutherland from Service Management Dynamix. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen real quick and go over to the other presentation and see if I can get rid of this window that's causing me issues. And go over to my other deck real quick here. Okay. Let's see if I can get that to work better now. All right. Is everyone seeing my title screen?
Yes.
All right, terrific. Thank you. All right. Our presentation, Putting the Value in Value Stream Mapping. Go ahead and move this forward. Here's our agenda. As I mentioned, I like to start with why. We'll talk about understanding value and what that means. We'll talk about why value stream mapping is important in that context. And then we'll get into the details. What is value stream mapping and how do we approach doing it? We'll talk a little bit about some of the facilitation aspects and getting started. We'll conclude with a little bit of a slide and discussion around the differences between value stream mapping and value stream management. And then we will get into doing some next steps and Q&A. First of all, I want to note that a lot of the content from this presentation comes from ITSM Academy. Donna Knapp is on the line here with us today, and I appreciate all of her help and contributions for Keith and myself, as well as for the larger ITSM community as well, and really do appreciate the opportunity to share some of this content with all of you. Starting with why. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle model. Really what this means is in a lot of our discussions when we're talking about something or presenting something, or even introducing ourselves and talking to people, it's very easy for us to talk about what we do and how we do it, but many times we skip or don't get to the part where we actually talk about our purpose or our reason for being and our why. And the Golden Circle model is really about inverting that and focusing first on starting with why. Why is what I'm talking about important? A little bit more of the why you should care, what's in it for me, and then you can get into the how and the what. There's a great YouTube video out there on Simon Sinek's TED Talk. If you haven't checked that out before, I highly encourage that, and it gives you a little bit more of the background on this model and part of why it's an important way to invert our thinking, and something that you're seeing more and more organizations starting to do. We start off defining what is value. Value, and this comes from the ITIL 4 content in the foundation classes, the perceived benefits, usefulness, and importance of something. What I would say about value is really something that is based on the perceptions and the perspective, and is somewhat subjective based on the end service consumer that you're talking about. And in any service relationship, we have an acronym in ITIL 4 called VOCR, which stands for Value, Outcomes, Costs, and Risks. In any relationship with any service offering between provider and consumer, we're going to have outcomes that are supported and costs and risks that are hopefully removed, as you see here on the right hand of the scale. And ideally, in order for value to be positive and the relationship to be worthwhile, those supported outcomes and the costs and risks removed need to be greater than potentially things that are affecting the outcomes as part of the relationship, especially if we're going from a reference value of what we do on our own or working with another provider, as well as potential costs and risks introduced. And when we talk about value and when we talk about value stream mapping, it's really important to think about how well do we understand what's going on in the nature of these relationships and with our offerings, as well as then how does the value stream map help us to learn more about that nature of value. Value stream mapping has a definition, and this is one that I found in some of Donna's content from ITSM Academy that I really like. It says, value stream mapping helps organizations to significantly improve and optimize performance by examining and improving work across organizations, functions, and processes. One of the things that you'll see with value stream mapping and looking at improvement, looking at optimizing performance, is it's a way to break down silos. And value really is at the heart of all of the different complementary frameworks that are out there that we're finding being more and more prevalent in a lot of IT organizations. Value stream mapping comes from Lean and is a big aspect of that, and I'll show some of the Lean guiding principles from the House of Lean coming up, but you also see value stream mapping being very prevalent in agile practices, in DevOps, as well as in IT service management. It's a way to unify. And the whole idea of adopt and adapt and do what works for you, I put this the more you know graphic on here, and I've done that in some of my other presentations because I think that's true. The more you know about these complementary frameworks, the better you're going to be able to find things that are fit for purpose and will actually help you go on that improvement journey and straighten out that curvy line to success. Some of the guiding principles from Lean are listed here. I'm not going to go through all these in detail, but you see number 2. We obviously start with value and defining what that is, but then we identify the entire value stream for each service product or product family, and then we work to look for things that are not creating value, i.e. potentially waste. And there's lots of things in doing this type of an exercise, and I've led a few of these inside of organizations that come out of that where people just cross-functionally don't even know what other parts of the organization are doing, and we'll get into some of those pieces as well. That duplication of effort or lack of communication in and of itself can impact flow or lead to opportunities to uncover waste. And I think it's important to look at some of these different guiding principles as part of that. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Keith and let him start us off. Is there a question or comment?
No, I really.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay, I think we're okay. So Keith, over to you, and I'll let you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for everybody that that decided to chime in and listen to us today. It's anybody that's willing to listen to me, I actually take that as a blessing. Thank you so much. And so it's interesting, you know, operating as a consultant and an educator in the space of service management. And as I think about ITIL 4, and Jeff kind of mentioned it, there's actually, as part of a foundation class, we define what we mean by value, and Jeff already did that. Then we talk about one of the four dimensions, value streams and processes. And then there's the thing called the value system. And then as one of the components of that is the value chain. And one of the things that I want people to understand, that the value chain in and of itself is a value stream. It's just that it's Idle 4's own value stream, and it's defined as an operating model. And when I think about operating, I think of the term day to day. What are those things that we do to keep the lights on, so to speak? So a value stream in and of itself is something that you have been a part of your whole life, whether at work or at home, because it is nothing more than a sequence of connected activities, a sequence of connected activities. And so if you ever hear the term workflow, right? What do we do? It's, think of an incident, the value stream or the set of activities for an incident: detect and record, categorize, prioritize. I mean, those are all action words. So I want people to think about an activity or an action word, right? And so you have value streams all around us. I'm also reminded of a commercial from one of the big service management technology platforms, and what they're really pushing is this concept of flow, right? This concept of flow, which potentially for a lot of you could even remind you of Gene Kim's book, or Gene and George and others, where they're talking about the three ways. Where the first way, let's look at the flow of activity from left to right. So value streams are around us all the time. And one of the things that I like with what we've done with the Idle best practice is demand dictates a flow of activities for which the hope on the back end, stakeholders with their subjective views will get the value that they are looking for. Now, the interesting thing about that, even in this picture, there's a couple things that I want you to notice. As part of the value stream, the sequence of activities from left to right, we have this concept of a macro level and a micro level. And as you would expect, on a micro level, it would be more down at a detailed level. But there's something else that's going on this diagram that you may not see. Look at the gap between the one process box and the next process box and the next process box. We want to understand the gap, but we also want to understand what's going on inside the box. Jeff, let's move ahead to the next slide. So the one thing that I always want you to associate the term value stream with is a very simple word called improvement. If you look at what's been done on this slide, both columns absolutely represent an improvement activity. And I'm thinking of, I don't know if you folks know and I don't want to really screw up Mary's last name, but I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. It kind of looks like Mary Poppendijk. And one of the things that she absolutely zeroes in on is this concept of silos. If I say to you that value stream mapping is a type of continual improvement, then there ought to be something that dictates when you're going to use value stream mapping or take advantage of other continual improvement options or methods like SWOT analysis, like process maturity, like balanced scorecard. We really call out value stream mapping as something for you to consider when there are multiple functions or multiple groups, or, as much as I hate to say it, multiple silos involved. And one of the things that we really want people to seriously consider is that you should take a strategic or tactical approach to say, let's use a value stream mapping workshop to kind of deal with this. So anybody that kind of understands this whole concept of continual improvement, you know, that there could be simple improvements, there could be medium improvements, there could be improvements that are really complex. And I would suggest to you that some of those improvements that you might attack, it might make sense to leverage value stream mapping to kind of make that happen. If you look here, significant, radical, the term strategic used there. It could involve multiple stakeholders from multiple pockets, if you will. That's when value stream mapping can give you the most benefit versus taking an alternate approach. Can I get you to kind of move on to the next slide here, Jeff? Now, I'm going to suggest to you that this is going to be my favorite slide to talk about today. There is a lot going on, and my biggest hope is that some of the things that I share here, some of you may know, but some of the things that I share here will actually kind of speak to the value of doing this. So let's kind of break this down. So the first thing that I want you to focus on is activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the flow of work from left to right. And what we want to be able to do is improve the flow. Now, we can improve the flow by tackling any part of this thing. So in other words, I can improve the flow by looking at what's going on in each individual activity, but I got to get down to the micro level to be able to do that. I want you to look at activity 1 through 5 as being at a macro level. And I'll get more into that in just a second. But I could also increase my ability to get from the start, left side, to the end, the right side, by looking at the things that are happening in between the activities. So if you look down at the bottom here, those dashed lines that are up and down and vertical and horizontal that are going all the way across, you see the words wait and you see the letters PT for process time. That is what is known, I believe that the proper term is that is what is known as a ladder. Now, the beauty of that ladder is that I can actually attach time points. That first wait could be 2 days, it could be 2 weeks. The process time could be 1 day, it could be 2 hours, it could be 1 week. So I'm a big fan of this word velocity. And I don't want you to think of velocity as just speed. I want you to also think about it as quality. So in other words, we want to go fast, but we want to be going fast in the right direction. And if you start to dig in to the activities and the process time, let's say it's 3 hours, this group of the right stakeholders are going to get in a room and they're going to lay out, these are the high level activities. And then they're going to look at each one of those high level activities and say, because I got the subject matter experts in the room or in the workshop or in the session, and they're going to say, these are all the things that make that up. And the question now becomes, what can we do to make that go faster? It could be automation. It could be taking bureaucracy or so-called bureaucracy out of a procedure. Some kind of way to make that more efficient, quicker. But let's say that that activity really is going to take us 2 hours. Now I want you to look at the little gray horizontal boxes under the term data A. You see where you see Q percentage, right? Q percentage, that's the quality percentage. Let's be clear. If activity 1 passes less than 100% quality to activity 2, you have little chance of producing 100% quality at the tail end of this value stream. In fact, every time any activity pushes forward less than 100% quality, it's actually pushing the next activity into a risk zone. And it's going to get in the way of being as efficient as we could be. Now, the PT actually stands for process time. How long does it take us to do that activity? Whereas the lead time is a combination of how long we waited to start, how long it took the activity, and how long before we wait to look at the next activity. So if you look at that summary of data box in the bottom right-hand corner of that deal, I could tell you that, for instance, when I add up activities 1 through 5, in total, that might only take me, let's say, 5 working days to complete. But in our current state, which is what a value stream is, when you first look at it, is supposed to represent, it might have taken me a week's worth of work, might have taken me 4.5 weeks to complete. And oh, by the way, by the time I went from quality of activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could end up down in a 25% level of quality. Now, let me ask you a question. What are your stakeholders who are supposed to get value from, or realize value from, the demand that they submitted and now they have it? How do you think they're going to react if we're only giving them, we took 5 weeks to get it to them and it only has 25% quality, which may have happened by going 70% times 30% times 50%. Because, oh, by the way, every time you, again, as I said earlier, every time you push less than a 100% quality to the next activity, you're now reducing the overall quality of what you're going to produce from this value stream. So I happen to think that this is fascinating and why you would want to do it. So think about an incident that you keep getting every particular week or every other week. And we decide that there are a number of different groups involved in that. And if we want to now reduce the mean time to restore service or to improve that, you're going to have to look at pieces of that. Now, if you kind of think of the concept of minimum viable product in Agile, meaning it's good enough, we're already admitting it's not perfect. And I guess the point that I want to make, if I improve any one of these activities a little bit, it's going to be better the next time around. If I do anything with the wait time, even if I just take a half an hour off, it still increases my velocity. And so on the previous slide, we said this is kind of a strategic undertaking. As an organization, we decide what types of improvements that we want to throw value stream mapping at, which now starts to wake up this concept also of value stream management. All right, so that's the one slide that I'm spending more time on today. Jeff, go ahead, sir. Next slide. So we can use value streams to improve functional groups. We can use value streams to help with a defect in an application. We can use value stream mapping to improve a process, or what today we call as a practice. But in either case, speaking of this being strategic, I want you to look at the developed charter as being a part of governance. And we're going to be getting hit with different things to throw value stream mapping at, hence the term identify opportunity. And if this is something that we're really focused on, we're going to have to prepare the team, help them understand what it is that we're trying to get our hand on. What you're seeing actually in this particular picture is really the marriage of value stream mapping and value stream management. Part of getting the team together. Having a group come together after we've mapped it out and do a report out, because that ends up being the justification to go forward to make it better tomorrow. Because when you first go down the road, you're establishing current state. And now that group of people have gotten together and presented our macro view and our micro view. And we're going to report out on that to some sponsor, which we really like for you to think of that as somebody in a leadership or decision-making role in your organization. We're going to design our future state and report that back to the same audience. Then we're going to say, how do we get from our current state to our new state? Because think about it, team, I want to be able to look back a year before and say, before our velocity was this, or our lead time was this. But through the work that we've done, look how we've been able to improve that. If you see, the last thing you'll do is you're going to execute. Now, I don't want anybody on this call to think that that initial value stream that we've done some improvement to and implemented that improvement, you are not done. This is a journey. You are not done, because I actually want you to come back at some defined interval, again, as part of governance, and look at that value stream. Yes, we improved it. 6 months later, can we now, because of some things that have changed in our organization, new technology, new legislation, new demand, new financing, whatever it is, do we have the opportunity to improve that particular value stream even more? Next slide, Jeff. Thank you, sir. So what you see here is one example using ITIL's value chain, ITIL 4's value chain, which I defined earlier as ITIL's own value stream. This actually has to do with an enhancement, a major enhancement that you might be making to some solution. And all of those action words, engage, plan, design and transition, obtain and build, deliver and support, those are all the things that we're going to go through based on that type of demand. And although the comment at the top says value streams are specific combinations of activities and practices, but the most important part of that statement, I believe, is behind the comma. Each one is designed for a particular scenario. So here's what I'm suggesting to you. As part of value stream management, certain situations that we're doing value stream mapping, under this situation, I want you to consider this value stream. But under a different situation, it could be a different value stream. And I'm going to show you that on the next slide, a different value stream using ITIL, still same value chain, right? So Jeff, next slide. This one now is more detect to correct, where the previous one was, hey, I got a major new enhancement that's come in. And how do we get that? Through the use of all those value chain activities that some group of people got in the room and did the macro and micro level of that. Well, this is another type of demand. This is like, I got a P1 incident, for instance. And I want to show you a couple things going on here. If it's a P1 incident, that horizontal straight line is what you need to be all over, because that was the demand. And engage is one activity that we're going to undertake. But as part of engage, we're going to need now the micro stuff. I'm going to need service desk involved. I'm going to need incident management involved. And then eventually, okay, we've engaged. We know what it is. Now, what are the deliver and support things that we have to do? Again, deliver and support macro. Micro now is service desk is engaged. Incident is engaged. Problem might be engaged depending on how bad it is. But if you look at the bottom left-hand corner where it points out value streams can represent segments of a greater value stream. And I want you to take note of the squiggly line that's going across the word improve. Because if I don't want that P1 to ever happen again, I'm probably going to have to throw a value stream mapping workshop at this situation that occurred. So that will go away, but that will run under the realm of continual improvement, of which value stream mapping is one example. And let's not forget, when I say engage and I light up service desk and incident management, as soon as you say service desk and incident management, you just woke up other flows or other activities or other value streams. So you gotta love the comment that value streams can represent segments of a greater value stream. The one thing that we probably ought to call out when we get that group of people together and we do our value stream mapping event, let's not try to cure world hunger. You probably want to confine it to a subset of 8 activities, which might be larger which might have other things on the front end and the back end attached to that, of what I'll call a superset value stream, if you will. So you definitely want to box it, so to speak. This is the part that we're looking at today. And any improvement that you make about that small part still makes you better tomorrow than you are today. And I so love the definition of the word Kaizen. I think goes something like small incremental improvements. We think that we got to nail it perfect, but if you make any part of that value stream better, you have presented an improvement to the organization. Jeff, I think this is a good time to help these folks talk about, get some exposure to value stream mapping versus value stream management. Now, I've talked around it, but this kind of brings it together. The first thing that I want to call your attention to is the quote at the top, because this is from earlier this year. But let's be clear, there's data. I went back as far back as 2018, and Forrester was talking about how value stream mapping can help. Everybody and their mother, so to speak, and I don't know if these people all get on some conference call at 2 o'clock in the morning that I wasn't invited to, but the next thing you know, Forrester, Gartner, these folks, Software Delivery Times, CIO Magazine, everybody is talking about how this could be a game changer in 2021. Now, if you look at one of the slides, back to one of the slides that Jeff presented, where he talked about the marriage of ITIL and DevOps and Agile, and and Lean, and I would actually throw in COVID. And Jeff did point out that value stream mapping really is a Lean concept. It's not new. I didn't actually even understand until I sat value stream mapping for facilitators that was headed up by Donna, who's on the call with us today, and a guy by the name of Michael Lorzen. I didn't realize in that workshop session that he actually took me back to the mid 80s, where I was a young fledgling IT guy at a manufacturing plant in Detroit, a Cadillac plant. And I remember going out to the plant floor, and I remembered a group of people with white coats on and having a clipboard watching a part of the assembly line process. And I came to learn from the value stream mapping for facilitators workshop that what they were doing were Gemba walks. They were actually observing the value stream, because you got to trust what you're looking at if you're going to improve it. So they were actually involved in a value stream mapping event. Look at my first bullet point, having visible representation of where value is for customers. That's the value stream mapping. And notice that I put it in little letters. Leveraging that information to rebalance and invest, that's value stream management in big letters. And what did I say there? You need both. So as soon as Jeff called out on an earlier slide, strategic, you should be thinking leadership and you should be thinking governance. And so on that bullet point under the key aspects, because I've added a couple things based on my own personal experience, but that first thing is not from me. Strategic and tactical in determining where activities make sense and associated prioritization. And so when Jeff had on an earlier slide, you have to prepare the team. Is this a good subject for us to use this tool for? And who's going to be part of that? Let's get our mission and plan and help everybody understand what we're trying to get done. Because what I want to be able to do as part of management is capture, visualize, and analyze the results of value stream mapping that we've done in the past and continue to do. And I want to make sure that what we're doing, and this is why you don't just want to throw this as anything, and I think of the continual improvement model, or should I say the register, where we kind of have our improvement activities prioritized, right? High cost, low cost, medium cost, short term, medium term, long term. I guarantee you that some of the things on there are probably absolutely ripe for value stream management. The other thing that we want to do So I've got some letters here. Let me make sure you understand. It says identify an understanding. And when you do that value stream mapping activity, what's the value add part? Meaning this is really going to help my stakeholders be better at what they do, no question about it. What's the indirect value add part? Well, those are things that you can't get away from, or you don't get to ignore, like legislative and regulatory things, right? Because some of the things in that value stream are being done for that reason. And what's the non-value add? And oh, by the way, it's the non-value add stuff that's getting in the way of flow the most. There's your opportunity. So when we present to our sponsor, we want to highlight all of those things. Learning from the results that differentiate the mapping activities, right? What are those things that, yes, I did it here, but as value stream management, what are my other opportunities across the organization? Because I actually want to market this as a solution, right? So let's be clear, this is never done. You can apply the concept to anything, and I've listed a few. I always like the fact that in IDLE 4, when we talk about the 4 dimensions and we talk about value streams and processes, we're saying that we can improve the value chain activities, we can improve the value system, we can improve the other dimensions. Anything can be improved. So we can apply this towards our practices and processes. We can apply this towards development. And one thing I want to caution you on, if you do go out to Google and you're looking up value stream mapping or value stream management, it seems heavily swayed towards development. But in reality, we can use this at home for stuff. I actually realized when I was weeding the front yard the other day that I was using a very wasteful value stream mapping approach to doing it. And I realized there was a much way of, so I think this changes your perspective. Instead of trying to pull the weeds up individually and risk getting bit by a spider or poking my hand and cutting it. Hey, meathead Keith, why don't you just rake the rocks away, and then it's much easier to pull the weeds up. And then, oh, by the way, in the raking, it pulls up some of them for me. Just a real kind of a simple little crazy thing. For those of you that know me, you already know I am somewhat quirky anyway. But we do want this to become an essential part of your toolbox. And what a big change in ITIL. What a big change in ITIL to attach itself to things in lean like value stream mapping. And one more, Jeff, and I believe I'm done. I am done because I turned it back over to Jeff now. Thank you for listening to me, team.
All right, thanks a lot, Keith. So we're going to wrap up just with a couple more slides. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was looking at things from the continual improvement model. It's fun because I just got done this last week teaching the intermediate direct plan and improve class. And when Keith talks about governance and we look at the different things that need to be in place in order to do this successfully, including the sponsorship, we also need to have a mechanism within which we can actually not just identify improvements, but then carry them through and understand baselining. And that's part of value stream mapping too. Doing your initial value stream map is a baseline. And then we can have a basis within which to improve. And the learnings that come through that, doing different types of assessments, of which doing a value stream map is a part of that. And then we figure out, based on what our larger strategic objectives and business vision, mission, goals, objectives look like, we can determine where we want to be and define targets for the areas that we've identified that we want to improve. And then we can define that improvement plan, put together the business case if it requires a significant amount of resources and funding, and then we can execute and evaluate and do things like benefits realization reviews and see if we made a difference, and then build momentum around doing this. So anything that we identify as part of going through value stream mapping and even value stream management ties very, very well in with the continual improvement model. I know a lot of you have been exposed to this, but for some of you that maybe haven't, you can learn about this in the ITIL 4 Foundation class. This is also very much based on lean principles and practices, And you can carry that forward as a mechanism to help you get started and to identify those things that you want to focus on and align it. And I've seen this work really well in a lot of organizations. Wrapping up, some ideas for next steps in Q&A, and I'll go through these and then Keith can jump in if he has anything else that he wants to reiterate. First of all, that I would say is it's sometimes heavy lifting to get something like value stream mapping and value stream management started in an organization, but it's worth the investment. And sometimes doing something like the continual improvement model and showing some value at a smaller scale can maybe lead up to those more strategic things. But if you can work on getting the time and the investment to practice and learn and do this and get better at it, it's really going to show a lot of value. There's a lot of information and resources and training. There's a value stream mapping fundamental class that's out there from ITSM Academy. We've now made that into a certification style class. So that's something to take advantage of and can learn more about. And myself and Keith and Donna and some of the other folks even on this line can help you learn more about that. I mentioned at the beginning the opportunity to align frameworks and break down silos. I've found that just by getting an organization together, I worked with an organization just to do a very initial high level breakdown of an IT related process around procurement, and getting some of the other folks from facilities and logistics and finance and some of the other cross-functional groups together, just learning more about what each other did and seeing where things were creating bottlenecks or wasting time or unintended consequences from some of the work there that they did. Just that in and of itself and getting to that current state view was extremely valuable. And use that as a way to, if you're dealing with silos or dealing with local optimization where you have constraints, you can identify those and then work to optimize around those. And so we just encourage everyone to learn more. If you like what you've heard today, there's definitely a lot of opportunities to dig deeper and make this part of, as Keith was alluding to, something that becomes a solution for improvement, or I look at it even as a specialized organizational capability that you can develop to help you deliver your products and services better. And just encourage everyone to get started and to learn more.
Hey, Jeff, can I add just one more thing before we open up the floor?
Please do.
You know, I just realized that we talked about pulling a group of people together to do a value stream mapping event, and we talked about the results of walking through a value stream and then presenting those results to some executive sponsor. But what I really need to make sure that people need to be very, very careful with, if you don't have a lot of experience with this, you want to be very, very careful. I'm a big fan of we only get one opportunity to make a great first impression. And for any of you that know about Scrum, you know that when that team is doing a sprint, you want a Scrum Master there. And the Scrum Master is not actually doing the actual development work, but they're making sure we're following the rules of Scrum. And the reason that I mention that, you want to have as a skill set or a competency, somebody, because when you're doing a value stream mapping event, you ought to have a person that's facilitating that. So that's a skill set or a competency that you definitely want to have, whether you bring somebody in from the outside or whether you build that competency inside of your organization. Don't do your first one or two of these unless you have a resource like that. And that is a strong recommendation coming from the experts, not from me.
All right, great point, Keith. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and open up the floor for questions. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask for Keith or myself, or really for anyone on the line that has anything that they want to add any feedback around?
No, thank you, guys did a great job. Thank you.
I was going to say, Alan, clearly we're not that good where there's no questions. Jeff and I, we're just a couple of old dudes.
Or we did so well, right? That's the other way to
Still
look at
finishing
it.
my notes. So.
Everyone's speechless. Now
I'm
someone's
still scribbling notes down.
appreciate you breaking
was-
the ice, Alan.
I was going to ask,
Or-
are you open for compliments? Because, you know, as always, Keith, you sound like, when you're in presenter mode to me, you sound like a magician. Like there is a big secret you're sharing with me. And I really enjoyed that, particularly the way that you were very concise in the difference between mapping and management. I really enjoyed that.
Well, and funny, thank you, Lisa. Believe it or not, and if it wasn't for the Donna Knapps of the world, always sending out those This Week on Campuses and adding different events, I actually didn't zero in on value stream management until one of the DevOps days was focused on it. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh, and it just, to me, really highlighted the things that Michael Orzen shared with us a couple of years ago on this concept. And I can tell folks that I have actually presented the fundamentals course at organizations, really big ones that you all have heard of. And it's amazing their perspective or the takeaway in realizing how much it potentially could help them in their day-to-day. Thank you, Lisa.
Right.
No, I was going to say that I really appreciate it. I mean, you can tell you both are really passionate about this, and I think it's something we all see as needed. And I appreciated the comment too. You need somebody there who knows how to do that value stream mapping, getting that first shot. I mean, getting that buy-in a lot of times has been a struggle just to even try things out like this, because I think when leadership sometimes hears of it, they get worried about, oh man, I think this is going to expose a lot more work, because like you said, it's never done, right? It's always something you're constantly doing. And I appreciate the part about the value stream management too. I mean, that I'm going to definitely read a little bit more into that and see, because I think that can help fulfill a gap that I see, where we find a lot of little improvements that we need to make, and we try to do one, but then easily everything kind of gets overtaken by all these other requests that get flooded in. What are some techniques that you guys have seen that have worked for helping to manage that and to help keep the focus on the value streams?
I can share. Hey, Jeff, just let me jump in really quickly, because I have this theory. You can kind of go into the front door, everybody's bought in, yada yada yada, let's do it. But there's also the back, or going in through the back door, meaning as much as I hate to say it, something bad happens. You recognize that it involves multiple different groups that are involved. Let's leverage the bad thing to use it as an opportunity to say, this really hurt our business. It was a P1. Here's something that I think will not only help with this situation, but other similar situations. Are you willing to let us do a pilot and prove its worth? And to me, that's a backdoor approach that happens as a result of something that didn't go well, versus people reading the the CIO magazine. The CIO reaches out to you and say, hey, let's start up this value stream mapping thing, right? I mean, good luck on that. I think you got to find something significant to the business that you can use to throw this at. And maybe you can use it for a brand new offering where you don't have any pain yet, or let's look for something that we tend to have a lot of pain with. I would actually look at what's on problem management's list of things to do. If you do have a problem management practice, or if you do have a CI register, or some organizations even have what they call a quality team or a defects management team. I think those are opportunities that you might see there. Jeff?
Yeah, I think that's a great list of things to think about, Keith, with that. The other thing I would add, Jake, is if you have something that has to do with a larger strategic initiative or a strategic objective, especially if it's customer facing, I think that's also a huge opportunity, because ultimately, if you can do things through learning and putting together that cross-functional aspect, something that isn't just doing a local optimization or improvement inside of one team, but something that spans teams that you can use to look at even just understanding how long does it actually take us to fulfill some type of a request or requirement, you can build off of that improvement just by learning and getting people together and having those discussions. And especially if it touches something that's customer facing, I found that having that in your back pocket too says, we do this, we're going to improve outcomes, we're going to improve value, which ultimately ITIL 4 talks about value co-creation, as you know, it can benefit both sides. And that would be the other point I would make to tack on to what Keith said.
And let me throw in a plug for ITSM for DevOps, because the subject of value streams does come up. And this is a workshop And as you now know, Jeff just let the cat out of the bag. He said that we have a certification now for the Value Stream Management Workshop, but there's also a certification for ITSM for DevOps. And the reason that I bring it up in the context of this discussion today is I had some very staunch ITIL legacy people in the workshop. And then I had some DevOps Agile type people in the workshop. And it was very interesting to me at the end of the workshop, the very staunch idle change manager said, and I'll never forget this, oh my God, if I adopted some of this, this would take over. This would get rid of 55% of my babysitting. That reeked of a value stream mapping opportunity. And we all have those kind of things going on in our organizations. You probably have them at home, for crying out loud.
All right.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, going to where the urgency is and then focusing on those customers when we talk about those values. Because, yeah, I mean, blending those multiple groups together, kind of ending the dogma wars and like silo wars in between the company, I think is something we all kind of see and want just to be through. Like, can we just talk about what's valuable to them because they're the ones kind of purchasing these products or services? Can we focus on them? So I appreciate those comments. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. It's a great question. We have a few minutes left. I want to run through a few summary slides real quick, but is there any other question, comment, feedback that anyone has before I pull up my other deck real quick and finish this up? All right. Well, I'll let you think of those questions for just another minute or two. I'll reshare my screen. I just want to do a couple of quick announcements. And I did a quick update on these, so I hope I captured everything. Donna or Lisa, if there's anything in here that either of you want to mention, including Service Management World, I just realized is coming up here in July, and those registrations are free right now. I didn't get a chance to put that into today's deck, but I do want to make sure that we cover some of those pieces as well. So going forward here, I mentioned in the past trainings that we've had this strategic leader package going forward. We've done the foundation and the direct plan and improve class, which I mentioned was just completed last week. Digital and IT strategy is coming up June 15th through 18th. We're still looking for a couple more people to come into that class to really help bolster the group exercises. Donna is going to be teaching that class. I'm going to be there helping out if I can, and some other folks as well. So it'll be a really good class. So June 15th to 18th, if you're interested in that. Looking at putting together another package for the second part of the year, August through November. That first foundation class is scheduled currently to be August 24th through 27th. And then there's some additional ITSM Academy public training opportunities. There's DevOps Foundation. There's the Essence of Experience, which is the class around customer, user, employee experience and the idea of experience level agreements. Donna's special class around her focus with her book and what she's put together around Certified Process Design Engineer, which is a fantastic class if you want to dig deeper on how to do process design and process improvement, is also coming up June 14th through 17th. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of those opportunities. I'm looking at doing a presentation next month around digital and IT strategy. I think some of you know that I had the opportunity to contribute and collaborate with David Cannon on that publication. And it's been about a year since that pilot training first came out. So I'm looking at doing something, going to ask and see if he's willing to help participate with that potentially next month, and bringing some folks together to talk about what we've learned over this last year. I think maybe bringing in some aspects of what we've gone through in 2020 with COVID could be a part of that. So don't have a formal agenda for what that's going to look like yet, but that's my idea for what I want to put together for next month, and I'm looking forward to working on putting that together. If any of you are interested in presenting or talking to me about collaborating in future meetings as we go forward through the rest of this year, please let me know. A couple of other quick things I want to mention. I talked earlier about the fact that previous recordings and the recording for this meeting will be out on the Boise ITSM fledgling YouTube channel that I have. It's really just my personal channel right now. I'm working on finding time to bolster that, but that link is there. So if you want to see this recording or share it with your friends or coworkers, look at any of our other previous content, those are all out there. Treasure Valley Agile Community is also a group that I think is very valuable, and their link to their meetup is here, and they have monthly meetings as well. Project Management Institute Western Idaho chapter also has events that are available virtually as well as in person. And then our friend Greg Sanker, who's a friend of mine, friend of the Academy, he has a blog and a YouTube channel called Keep the Learning On. I think it's worthwhile to check that out as well if you'd like to continue to look at some great thought leaders presenting on various topics and collaborating. So those are out there. Please take advantage of those opportunities, and look forward to seeing everyone next month. And of course, please continue to spread the word about our group, and looking forward to continuing to grow our audience. Keith, thank you for co-presenting with me today. I really appreciate it. I'll go ahead and stop with the announcements and see if there's any final questions or comments that anyone has.
Jeff, it was my pleasure, and I really want to thank everybody for joining in, and tell your friends.
Thanks, Keith. And I see that Donna put in the Service Management World chat, so please do take advantage of that opportunity as well to be able to take a look at a large international conference and being able to attend those virtual sessions. A great resource and a great opportunity to be a part of that as well. All right, we're just another minute or two away from time. Any final questions, comments from anyone that's here? I appreciate all of you taking time out of your day to be here with us today.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Not
you.
hearing anything, we'll let everyone go. Enjoy the rest of your day and your week. Thank you for being here, and look forward to seeing you next time.
But
Bye, guys.
Guys,
Thanks.
awesome job.